Zareth pressed her scaled hands against the cool metal of her wheelchair's armrests, watching through the medical facility's transparent aluminum windows as other patients walked past in the corridor. Her tail, once powerful enough to propel her through water at incredible speeds, now lay motionless beneath a thermal blanket. The accident had happened over 10 years ago, but the memory still burned fresh in her mind. The mining explosion on Kepler 442b had crushed her spine, leaving the proud Aquarian warrior unable to use her lower body. Her people were amphibious, equally at home in water and on land, but now she was trapped in this mechanical chair, dependent on others for the most basic tasks. The Galactic Medical Council had tried everything their advanced technology could offer, but Aquarian physiology was too different from the other species they typically treated. Another dead end, she whispered to herself, reading the latest medical report on her holographic display. The Vorthan neural specialists had been her last hope, but even their biomechanical interfaces couldn't bridge the gap where her spinal cord had been severed. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, expecting another nurse with medication. Instead, a human stepped into the room. Zareth had heard of humans, the newest species to join the Galactic Federation, but had never seen one in person. He was shorter than most species she knew, with strange hair covering his head and kind eyes that seemed to sparkle with an unusual intensity. "Ms. Zareth?" he asked, his translator device rendering his words in perfect Aquarian. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm a biomechanical engineer from Earth." Zareth tilted her head, her gill slits fluttering with curiosity. "I wasn't expecting any visitors. If you're here to offer another experimental treatment, I should warn you that I've tried everything." Marcus smiled and pulled up a chair, sitting down so they were at eye level. "I'm not here as a doctor. I'm here as an engineer who spent the last 3 months studying your case files. The medical community has been approaching your situation all wrong." "What do you mean?" Zareth asked, leaning forward despite herself. "They've been trying to fix your spine to restore what was lost," Marcus explained, pulling out a small holographic projector. "But what if we didn't need to fix anything? What if we could build something better?" The projection showed a sleek, form-fitting suit that seemed to flow like liquid metal. It was designed to match Aquarian anatomy perfectly, with extensions that would support her tail and additional segments that could interface with her unique physiology. "This is an exosuit," Marcus continued, his voice growing more animated. "Not a medical device, but a tool. Think of it as external muscles, external nerves, external strength. It wouldn't heal your spine, but it would make your spine irrelevant." Zareth stared at the projection, her heart's racing. "This is impossible. The power requirements alone would be enormous, and the neural interface would need to read intentions I can no longer send to my lower body." "You're thinking like a doctor," Marcus said with a grin. "I'm thinking like an engineer. We don't need to read signals from your damaged nerves. We can read them from the healthy ones. Your brain still sends movement commands. They just can't reach their destination. The suit would intercept those signals higher up in your nervous system and translate them into movement." "Even if that worked, the materials science alone," Zareth began. "Would be challenging, yes," Marcus agreed. "But not impossible. Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. We've always been good at building tools to overcome our limitations. This would just be the most sophisticated tool ever built." Zareth looked at the projection again, noting how the design accounted for her tail's natural movement patterns and even included provisions for her to swim. "Why would you do this?" "You don't even know me." Marcus was quiet for a moment, his expression growing serious. "My sister was paralyzed in a hovercar accident when she was 16. She spent 3 years in a wheelchair before the doctors finally developed a neural bridge that let her walk again. But those 3 years, they were the hardest of our family's life. Not because she couldn't walk, but because everyone kept telling her she had to accept that she never would again. He leaned forward, his eyes meeting hers. The difference between impossible and inevitable is usually just someone stubborn enough to try. I'm very stubborn, Ms. Zarath. Zara, she said quietly. Just Zara. Zara, Marcus repeated with a smile. So what do you say? Want to help me build the impossible? For the first time in years, Zara felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. Not the desperate hope of a patient waiting for a cure, but the electric anticipation of an engineer about to tackle an impossible problem. What would you need from me? She asked. Everything, Marcus said honestly. This isn't going to be easy. I'll need detailed scans of your nervous system, your musculature, your bone density. I'll need to understand how you moved before the accident, how you think about movement now. We'll probably fail a dozen times before we succeed. And you think it's worth it? Marcus gestured to the projection, which was now showing the suit in motion, flowing like water as it carried its wearer through complex movements. Zara, what you've been through, what you've lost, it's terrible, but it's also given you something unique. You understand both sides of this problem in a way no one else can. You know what it's like to be powerful and what it's like to be powerless. That perspective is going to be crucial in designing something that doesn't just restore function, but enhances it. Zara stared at the projection for a long moment, watching the figure move with fluid grace through water and across land. She thought about the years she had spent in this chair, the dreams she had abandoned, the future she had accepted as impossible. How long would it take? She asked. I don't know, Marcus admitted. Could be months, could be years, but I promise you this. I won't stop until it works, or until you tell me to. Zara looked at this strange human, this member of a species barely known to the galaxy, offering to dedicate his life to solving her problem. There was something in his eyes, a determination that reminded her of her own people's stubborn refusal to accept defeat. All right, Marcus Chen, she said, extending her hand. Let's build the impossible. As they shook hands, Zara felt the first stirrings of excitement she had experienced in over a decade. She didn't know if this human's wild dream would work, but she knew one thing for certain. She was tired of accepting limitations. It was time to start breaking them. Marcus spent the rest of the day taking detailed measurements and scans, asking questions that no one had ever asked before. He wanted to know how she had moved through water, how her tail had provided propulsion, how her people's unique physiology had evolved for both aquatic and terrestrial life. Most engineers focus on replicating normal human movement, he explained as he calibrated a bone density scanner. But you're not human, and this suit doesn't need to. 8 months had passed since Marcus first walked into Zara's room with his impossible dream. The makeshift laboratory they had established in an abandoned section of the medical facility was now filled with prototypes, failed experiments, and the constant hum of fabrication equipment that Marcus had somehow convinced the facility administrators to provide. Neural pathway mapping complete, Marcus announced, his hair disheveled from another sleepless night. The holographic display in front of him showed a complex web of nerve pathways, highlighted in blue where signals flowed normally and red where they were blocked by scar tissue. Zara maneuvered her wheelchair closer to examine the data. Over the months, she had become as much an engineer as Marcus, learning to read the technical specifications and contributing insights that only someone living with her condition could provide. Look at this, she said, pointing to a cluster of intact nerves near her upper spine. These pathways are still trying to send signals. They're just not reaching their destination. Exactly, Marcus said, his voice thick with exhaustion and excitement. We've been thinking about this backwards. Instead of trying to bypass the damaged area, we intercept the signals before they reach it. The breakthrough had come 3 weeks earlier, when Zara had accidentally triggered a muscle spasm, while connected to one of their test interfaces. Marcus had noticed that her brain was still sending perfectly clear movement commands. They were simply getting lost in the damaged tissue. "Run the simulation again," Zara requested. Marcus input the new parameters, and the holographic suit came to life. This version was sleeker than the original concept, with microservos that could respond to neural signals in milliseconds. The tail section was particularly elegant, designed to amplify and enhance the natural undulating motion that Zara's people used for swimming. "Power consumption is down to acceptable levels," Marcus muttered, checking the readings. "Response time is under 10 milliseconds. Structural integrity is, well, it should hold together." "Should?" Zara asked with amusement. "Will," Marcus corrected with a tired smile. "It will hold together." The past months had not been easy. They had faced skepticism from the medical staff, funding challenges and technical problems that seemed insurmountable. The first prototype had caught fire during testing. The second had responded so slowly that it was useless. The third had worked perfectly for 5 minutes before its neural interface overloaded. But with each failure, they had learned something new. Marcus had called in favors from colleagues across human space, obtaining rare materials and cutting-edge components. Zara had used her connections in the Aquarian community to gather data on their species' physiology that had never been compiled before. "The integration matrix is stable," Marcus reported, running through his final checks. "All systems are green." Zara looked at the completed suit hanging in its support cradle. It was beautiful in a way she hadn't expected, flowing lines that seemed organic despite its technological nature. The surface was a deep blue-green that reminded her of the oceans of her home world, with subtle patterns that caught the light like scales. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked softly. Zara had been ready for months, but she knew he was asking about more than just the test. If the suit worked, it would change everything. If it failed, well, they would keep trying. But a part of her couldn't help wondering if she could handle another disappointment. "I'm ready," she said firmly. The process of putting on the suit was unlike anything Zara had ever experienced. The material seemed to flow around her body, conforming to her shape with incredible precision. Thousands of micro-contacts made connection with her skin, so gently she barely felt them. "Neural interface is coming online," Marcus said, monitoring the process from his control station. "I'm seeing good signal propagation from the intercept points." Zara felt a strange tingling sensation as the suit's systems integrated with her nervous system. It wasn't painful, but it was profoundly alien, as if her body was suddenly larger than she remembered. "Try thinking about moving your tail," Marcus suggested. Zara closed her eyes and concentrated. For 10 years, thinking about moving her tail had been an exercise in frustration, a reminder of what she had lost. But now, as she formed the intention to move, she felt something respond. The suit's tail section moved, not the jerky, mechanical motion she had expected, but a smooth, natural curve that felt like her own movement magnified. Zara's eyes flew open and she looked down at her lower body in amazement. "I can feel it," she whispered. "I can actually feel the movement." "The suit's sensory feedback system is working," Marcus explained, his voice tight with emotion. "You're not just controlling it, you're experiencing it." Slowly, carefully, Zara began to experiment with the suit's capabilities. Her tail responded to her thoughts as if it had never been damaged. Her legs, which had been motionless for over a decade, moved with fluid grace. "Try standing," Marcus suggested. This was the moment they had worked toward for 8 months. Zara placed her hands on the arms of her wheelchair and thought about standing up. The suit responded instantly, its systems providing the support and strength her body could no longer generate on its own. For the first time in 10 years, Zara stood upright. The sensation was overwhelming. She was taller than she remembered. Her perspective shifted in a way that brought back a flood of memories. But more than that, she felt powerful again, balanced, complete. "How does it feel?" Marcus asked, his instruments recording every aspect of the suit's performance. "Like flying," Zara said, taking her first tentative step. The suit moved with her, its systems anticipating her intentions and providing support where she needed it. "Like being myself again, but more." She walked across the laboratory, her movements becoming more confident with each step. The suit felt like a natural extension of her body. Not a machine she was controlling, but a part of herself she had rediscovered. "Let's try the water test," Marcus suggested, gesturing toward the small pool they had installed for testing the suit's aquatic capabilities. Zara nodded, her hearts racing with excitement. Swimming had been her greatest joy before the accident, and its loss had been the hardest to accept. As she stepped into the water, the suit's systems automatically adjusted, its tail section becoming more fluid, its surface textures changing to reduce drag. Then she moved. It was like being reborn. The suit amplified her natural swimming abilities, allowing her to move through the water with speed and grace that exceeded even her pre-accident capabilities. Her tail cut through the water with powerful strokes, while her arms provided steering and additional propulsion. She surfaced near where Marcus was standing, water streaming from the suit's surface. "This is incredible," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "It's not just giving me back what I lost, it's making me better than I ever was." Marcus smiled, but Zara could see the exhaustion in his eyes. The months of work had taken their toll on him, and she realized that while she was experiencing the joy of rediscovered mobility, he was experiencing the relief of a promise kept. "There's still work to do," Marcus said. "We need to test the suit's long-term stability, its power systems, its ability to interface with other technology. And we need to document everything so that other engineers can build similar systems." "Other engineers?" Zara asked, pulling herself out of the pool. "This is just the beginning," Marcus explained. "What we've built here, this technology, it could help thousands of people across the galaxy. Different species, different types of injuries, but the same basic principle. We've proven that the impossible is just another engineering problem." Zara looked at the suit she was wearing, feeling its systems respond to her every thought and intention. She thought about all the people like her, trapped by circumstances beyond their control, told to accept limitations they should never have to accept. "We'll need a team," she said thoughtfully. "Engineers, biologists, specialists from different species. This technology will need to be adapted for each race's unique physiology." "Are you volunteering?" Marcus asked with a smile. "I'm not volunteering," Zara said firmly. "I'm committing. This suit didn't just give me my life back, Marcus. It gave me a purpose. We're going to change everything." As they worked together to analyze the test data, Zara felt a sense of completion she hadn't experienced since before her accident. Not just because she could walk and swim again. 2 years after Zara had taken her first steps in the prototype suit, the Galactic Liberation Initiative's headquarters buzzed with activity that would have been unimaginable when Marcus first walked into that hospital room. The converted space station orbiting Kepler 442c housed engineers, biologists, and disability advocates from 47 different species, all working toward a single goal: making advanced mobility technology accessible to everyone. Zara glided through the main laboratory in her production model suit, the latest iteration of the technology that had given her a new life. This version was lighter, more powerful, and so perfectly integrated with her nervous system that she sometimes forgot she was wearing it at all. Her tail moved with fluid precision as she navigated between workstations where teams were developing adaptations for species she had never even heard of 2 years ago. The crystalline delegation from Sigma Draconis has arrived, announced Dr. Kethra, a Vorthan scientist who had joined their team 6 months earlier. They're requesting a demonstration of the resonance-based interface we developed for silicon-based life forms. Zara nodded, her suit's integrated communication systems automatically scheduling the meeting. Have Marcus join us. His insights into the harmonic feedback loops will be crucial for this presentation. Marcus emerged from the prototype fabrication bay, his hair now showing streaks of premature gray from the stress and excitement of the past 2 years. The young engineer had become the unofficial leader of their technical development teams, though he still insisted that Zara was the true heart of the organization. How did the field test go? Zara asked as they made their way to the demonstration chamber. Better than we hoped, Marcus replied, pulling up a holographic report on his portable display. The young Thorian, who lost his lower limbs in that mining accident on Proxima Centauri b, tested our new suit for 8 hours straight. Not only did he regain full mobility, but the suit's strength amplification systems allowed him to lift loads that would challenge even an uninjured Thorian. Zara smiled at the report, but her expression grew thoughtful. Any word from the Galactic Medical Council about their latest review? Marcus's face darkened slightly. They're still calling it experimental technology requiring extensive regulatory approval. Translation: they want to study our work for another 5 years before allowing widespread distribution. Let them study, Zara said with determination. Meanwhile, we keep building and we keep helping people. The revolution doesn't wait for permission. The past 2 years had been a constant battle, not just against technical challenges, but against institutional resistance. The established medical community viewed their work with suspicion, calling it dangerous and unproven. Many governments were reluctant to fund technology that might make their disabled citizens too independent. Even some disability advocacy groups worried that the suits would create unrealistic expectations or pressure people to be fixed rather than accepted. But for every bureaucrat who tried to slow them down, there were a dozen individuals like the Thorian miner who desperately needed their help. The team had learned to work around official channels, funded by private donations and supported by a growing network of volunteers who believed that mobility was a right, not a privilege. The crystallines are ready for you, Dr. Kethra announced over the intercom. The demonstration chamber had been modified to accommodate the unique needs of silicon-based life forms. The visiting delegation consisted of 3 crystalline entities, their geometric forms shifting and refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. One of them, designated as Patient Prime, showed visible fracture damage to their lower ambulatory matrix, the crystal equivalent of legs. Honored crystallines, Zara began, her suit's translator rendering her words in the harmonic frequencies that comprised crystalline language. We understand that traditional biomechanical interfaces cannot serve your people due to your unique physiology. What we've developed instead is a resonance-based system that works with your natural harmonic frequencies. Marcus activated the demonstration unit, a suit-like framework that looked more like a musical instrument than medical equipment. Thousands of tiny resonance chambers were arrayed throughout its structure, each one tuned to specific crystalline frequencies. Rather than intercepting neural signals like our biomechanical suits, this system reads the harmonic intentions that your people use for movement, Marcus explained. It amplifies and translates those harmonics into mechanical motion. Patient Prime approached the resonance suit with obvious skepticism. Their communication frequencies carried undertones of doubt that Zara's translator rendered as, "Many promises have been made to our kind. All have resulted in disappointment." "We understand your hesitation," Zara replied. "I spent 10 years being disappointed by promises that didn't deliver. But this isn't a promise. This is an invitation to test something that already works." The process of integrating Patient Prime with the resonance suit was unlike anything they had attempted before. Instead of physical contact points, the suit formed a harmonic shell around the crystalline, matching their natural frequencies and gradually synchronizing with their movement intentions. The first moment of success was audible throughout the chamber. Patient Prime generated a low, resonant tone that the suit translated into a single, smooth step forward. Their fractured lower matrix remained motionless, but the suit's ambulatory systems moved with perfect precision. What followed was 15 minutes of increasingly confident movement as Patient Prime explored the suit's capabilities. They walked, turned, even performed complex geometric dances that were part of crystalline cultural expression. Their harmonic communications grew brighter and more complex, conveying emotions that Zara's translator struggled to render but clearly indicated amazement and joy. "This is unprecedented," Patient Prime finally communicated. "We have been told for generations that our unique nature made us incompatible with assistive technology. You have proven that incompatibility is merely a failure of imagination." After the successful demonstration, the crystalline delegation immediately commissioned 3 production units and offered to fund research into adaptations for other silicon-based species. But more importantly, they offered something Zara valued even more than money: legitimacy. The crystallines were one of the most ancient and respected species in the galactic community. Their endorsement would open doors that had been firmly closed to the initiative. "This changes everything," Marcus said as they watched the delegation depart. "With crystalline backing, the medical council will have to take us seriously." "Maybe," Zara agreed. "But even if they don't, we've proven something important today. We've shown that no one is beyond help, that every form of consciousness can be enhanced rather than limited." As evening fell over the space station, Zara found herself in the observation deck, looking out at the stars of the Kepler system. 2 years ago, she had been a patient waiting for someone else to solve her problems. Now she was part of something that was transforming lives across the galaxy. Marcus joined her at the observation window, carrying 2 cups of the human beverage called coffee that had become popular among their diverse staff. "The Andorian delegation wants to meet next week," he said, settling beside her. "Apparently, they've heard about our work with extreme environment adaptations." "Good," Zara replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "The more species we can help, the harder it becomes for anyone to dismiss what we're doing as experimental curiosity." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching traffic move between the station and the planet below. Among those ships, Zara knew, were people traveling to receive suits of their own, people whose lives would be transformed just as hers had been. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't walked into my room that day?" Zara asked. Marcus considered the question seriously. "Honestly, someone else would have figured it out eventually. Maybe not the same solution, maybe not as elegant, but the need was there. The demand was there. It was inevitable." "You said something similar to me 2 years ago," Zara remembered, "about the difference between impossible and inevitable." "I still believe that," Marcus said. "But I've learned something since then. It's not just about being stubborn enough to try. It's about being willing to completely reimagine what's possible." Zara nodded, thinking about all the lives they had already changed and all the ones they would change in the future. The initiative had grown beyond anything she had imagined, but its core mission remained the same, proving that limitations existed to be overcome, not accepted. "The medical community is finally starting to pay attention," she observed. "Dr. Vextar from the Galactic Health Institute sent a message today. They want to establish a formal partnership." "What did you tell them?" "That we're interested, but only if they're ready to move at our pace," Zara said with a slight smile. "We've spent 2 years proving that the official way isn't the only way. If they want to join us, They need to understand that we're not going to slow down for bureaucracy." Marcus laughed. I can't imagine the look on Vextar's face when they read that response. "Probably similar to the look you had when I first suggested we ignore their approval process and just start helping people," Zara replied. The truth was that the initiative's success had surprised everyone, including its founders. What had started as one engineer's promise to solve one person's problem had become a movement that was reshaping how the galaxy thought about disability, limitation, and human potential. "What's next?" Marcus asked. Zara gestured toward the stars visible through the observation deck's transparent aluminum. "Everything. We've proven that the technology works, that it can be adapted for any species, any type of mobility challenge. Now we scale it up. We build manufacturing facilities on a dozen worlds. We train local engineers to maintain and improve the systems. We make this technology so common, so accessible, that mobility limitations become a thing of the past." "That's a big goal," Marcus said. "So is building a working exosuit," Zara pointed out. "And look how that turned out." As they prepared to leave the observation deck, Zara's suit detected an incoming priority message. It was from their field office on Tau Ceti A, where they had recently opened their first permanent clinic for suit fittings and training. The message was from a young Centaurian named Veltar, who had received one of their latest generation suits 3 months earlier. Before the suit, Veltar had been paralyzed in a transport accident and told they would never walk again. The message was simple. "Today I climbed Mount Catharal. Thank you for giving me back the sky." Attached was an image of Veltar standing on the summit of their homeworld's highest peak, arms raised in victory, their suit gleaming in the alien sunlight. Zara felt tears forming in her eyes as she looked at the image. This was why they did the work, why they fought the bureaucrats and overcame the technical challenges and pushed themselves to the edge of exhaustion. Not for the recognition or the scientific achievement, but for moments like this, when someone who had lost hope discovered they could touch the sky again. "Worth it?" Marcus asked softly, having seen the message over her shoulder. "Every moment," Zara replied without hesitation. Together they walked back into the laboratory, where their teams were already preparing for the next day's challenges. There were new prototypes to test, new species to accommodate, new barriers to break down. The revolution that had started with one human's stubborn refusal to accept the impossible was just getting started. And throughout the galaxy, people who had been told to accept their limitations were discovering that the only real limitation was the failure to dream big enough. Thanks to the work of a persistent human engineer and an Aquarian warrior who refused to give up, the sky was no longer the limit for anyone but because she had found something worth dedicating her life to. The young human engineer who had walked into her room 8 months ago with an impossible dream had become more than a colleague. He had become a friend, a collaborator, and a fellow revolutionary. Together, they were about to transform what it meant to be disabled in a galaxy that had always accepted limitations too easily. "Tomorrow," Marcus said as they prepared to end their testing session, "we start changing the world." Zara nodded, her suit's systems powering down as she settled back into her wheelchair. But now the chair felt different, not like a prison, but like a temporary resting place. Tomorrow she would stand again, walk again, swim again, and more importantly, tomorrow they would begin the work of ensuring that everyone else could too. Be normal. We can make it better than normal. As the day wore on, Zara found herself talking more freely than she had in years, describing the sensation of swimming at high speeds, the way her tail had worked in harmony with her arms, the grace and power she had once possessed. For the first time since the accident, she allowed herself to remember not with pain, but with purpose. "This is just the beginning," Marcus said as he packed up his equipment. "Tomorrow, we start designing your future." Zara watched him leave, her mind's racing with possibilities she had thought were lost forever. Outside her window, the stars of the Kepler system glittered with promise, and for the first time in years, she looked forward to tomorrow.